we're finished. I'm not going to talk about the real tank because I've spoken about it before in the manga video. So let's just talk about building this thing. So putting it together was pretty straightforward. This turret doesn't come off. It's actually trapped by a piece of plastic inside there. After I painted it, I would highly suggest that you scrape off the paint off the pegs in case for some reason you need to get it apart, which I did have to take it apart because I forgot to paint these exhaust systems. So I wanted to pry it apart and get some rust paint on there. But then after it was, finished, I did glue this seam together here, and I didn't sand it enough, but that's fine. I want it to look like a weld seam, although I don't think the real Sherman would ever weld there. But this is a cartoon thing. There's a spring inside this thing, and it's trying to keep the thing up, but it's not a very strong spring, as you can see. So maybe you don't need to. You probably don't need to use that spring at all, because otherwise it might always be like that, which might be weird. So the machine gun I did drill out. Be mindful, it's kind of sensitive. As I was pressing this front end together, I actually bent this downwards, and I bent it back, and luckily it didn't snap. But it's a nice thick barrel, so it's pretty easy to drill. Okay. These fit in fine. I did back all these additional parts with glue on the inside so they don't fall out. This is definitely under detailed compared to a Meng. The hatch doesn't open, there's just no antenna or anything like that. We'll obviously compare it to the Meng one. And these are supposed to be open loops like these, but they're just solid, right? Let's see. So the best feature about this Tiger brand is the fact that it has real tracks compared to the rubber garbage that Meng uses. And you don't have to assemble these tracks much. There's only one pin right here, or somewhere. I can't even see it. But the tracks are molded around two pieces of string, and that string, obviously being flexible, allows the track to flex. And there's only one very small pin, maybe it's there, that you have to put in through those two parts, and that's what's keeping it together. One criticism though is the tracks are too tight. It was really difficult to put those pins in, and I almost felt like I bent maybe one of the tracks a little bit. If they just added one extra link, there would be a little bit of sag, which is realistic. It would be easier to put together. As far as putting them together, I would do it right here. I would actually have one side here, and then I would slide the pin in. But it was still really difficult because the track is just a little bit short, I think. It's just too taut. If they, again, added one extra link, it would be much easier and look more realistic. But as you can see, the thing could roll, but it's not easy because the track is so tight. Anyways, I don't care about playing with this thing. Okay, so what else? Not much, because there simply aren't many parts. But everything works well enough, I suppose. The thing came with no logical decals. This is the only decal I used. Figuring, some army guys might paint something like that. But it didn't come with any decals with the star or any sort of registration numbers, so I just took these from a variety of old model kits and put them on there. This is even a Gundam decal of some sort, I think, like Londo Bell or something. Okay, so that's an issue. If you want to make a realistic version of this model kit, you're gonna have to probably buy some decals and stuff. Okay, so weathering it wise, I used some Mr. Hobby putty, like the weathering, different colors of putty, and then AK Interactive Rust Solutions are fantastic. So those two things, if you buy a few of those, you can really weather something really quick and really easy. And then after I did all those, I just threw a couple random acrylic paint washes over it to try to blend in the weathering a little bit better. And then I did clear coat it a couple times in between these stages because I didn't want to rip off any of the paint. I did also go and add some Tamiya brown paint wash into these grooves because the grooves are big enough. You don't really have to, but I figured it's a weather tank, why not? Okay, so that's it. Let me pull out some other tanks. So the problem with the Meng tanks is the size. Look how small that thing looks. So similar to it is the Firefly, and then similar to also that is the M10 Wolverine. They're all super small chassis. Now Meng does make this M5 Stuart, which is classified as a light tank. This makes sense, you know, the size of this. So now this light tank makes sense next to a medium tank. And then here's a German Panther, which is also classified as a medium tank. And then here's a French Samoa, which is, I guess, a medium tank as well. So I think if you take those Meng tanks away, this actually all makes sense now. Possibly the Sherman might be a little bit too big. I feel like the Sherman is a much smaller tank in real life than a Panther, but it's a lot better than this, right? This is just weird looking. So Meng really dropped the ball on the Sherman, which is really sad because it's the most popular tank probably of World War II, if you aren't German or Japanese, I guess. So yeah, alright, so I do like this for sure. And then Meng has those rubber tracks that are going to crack eventually. So these will never crack. It's just going to always look nice. So let's just get rid of those for the size comparisons. Size-wise, I do like this a lot more. But I want to show about the details, you know, because the Meng definitely has more details. First, the barrel is much smaller, but it got this like domed, you know, guard. And I guess that's accurate because the real one, you know, you could move the machine gun around so that it has headlights, right? I don't know, this thing just runs in the dark apparently. That makes no sense, right? And then the headlights even have the brush guards, so that's nice. The loops are much smaller, the toe loops, that looks good. It even has indication of toe hooks down there. This has none of that. The Meng came with all these decals. All these decals came with it, so it looks more like a Sherman. This is preference, of course. The barrel here is more realistic, being long and thin like that. This is definitely way cartoony. Either or, I suppose. But this has two round things. I don't know if those are sight windows or what. This has no indication of that. Alright, so the two hatches here seem okay. I guess this might be this is a different Sherman entirely, actually. This is a flat, you know, flat plate Sherman, whereas this is the old cast hull. So it can't be a direct comparison. So maybe these flat ones, they must have still had headlights though. So you have the bolted on details here, which is nice. This may have not had it because it's a cast hull, right? Leave a comment. I'm not an expert on World War II armor. Going to the side, what I do like about this is it only has the one set of bogey rollers, or whatever you would call this assembly. This has two. It needed it, I guess, to make it bigger. But this definitely looks very cartoony. The overall appearance of this, I like this more because it's just so foreshortened and so squished and deformed that I think it's fantastic. It's just maybe it could have been scaled up differently somehow. Alright, this has side tie downs or whatever. This has just a flat side for the mold process. This has a separate, you know, shovel. There's a hatch in this side. No indication of anything there. Again, it is a different casting. I'm pretty sure this is on the real world. This is a cast turret, but it should have a escape hatch, I assume. This also has the tie downs there, or maybe that's how they craned the thing onto the hull. I don't know, some sort of cable point of some sort. Going to the back, I do like the exhaust here hidden behind there. It's a totally different design, of course, having a hatch, but there's just more detail back here. And then you have this, you know, these whatever service gear attached, and also again taillights and the protective rings. So I'm gonna guess this is supposed to be a taillight, but it's just a flat surface, right? I will say this is kind of nice here, whatever these things are supposed to be. And this has this like parcel shelf for extra gear, which is nice. And then so it's nice that it has the engine venting. There's no such venting here. I assume it's supposed to be up in there. Yeah, another shovel. And then you can go to the top view. The doors of this could be posed open. I may have glued mine together. It's got an antenna, and it's got a hatch here, some sort of thing there, and then the machine gun mount. This is pretty plain, right? Very plain indeed. So men got far more detail into something a lot smaller, which is obviously difficult. The downfall is it has rubber tracks, and it's just not sized properly compared to its other products. So ideally you could combine features of both of these, and you'd have the perfect Sherman that's deformed that fits in with other collections. So there still is one other brand, Tiger, and I'm going to Trumpeter. Yeah, sorry, I think I said this was Tiger before. This is a Trumpeter, as the title of the video will show. But Tiger does make a deformed Sherman, and that's going to be the third one I will build eventually, and we'll figure out which one is the best here. Okay, so I did a video on these. These are by a brand called Pandas Anna, so you can search that out. They're just little plastic figures. They would be really ideal to paint, but I'm too lazy to paint stuff, so. But they scale really well with this tank, I think. Alright, well, anyways, yeah, pretty nice model kit. It was a lot easier to build, faster than the Mang, because it has less parts. And I know that the tracks will never go bad, so I think it's actually worth, maybe, if you really love tanks, you might want to just get both kits. They're not extremely expensive model kits. Or if you want to give them to a kid. I would suggest if you're going to give it to a kid to learn how to make models, that you go with this one. It's far more forgiving than the really tiny parts on this, which I think a kid might break trying to get them into the holes. Okay, well, thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next deformed tank video.